Coming up tonight, a police sergeant charged for the killing of an Exuma man. Meanwhile, plans to scrap quarantine requirements on November 1st have fallen away, and a top hotel exec isn't sure when his resort will open.
Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Jared Higgs. Topping news tonight, charges have been laid against a former police sergeant accused of fatally shooting a man in Exuma 2 days ago. That off-duty officer was not required to enter a plea when he appeared before a magistrate this afternoon. Gillian Gray was in court and has these details.
52-year-old Sergeant Jason Anderson of Stewart's Manor, Exuma, was brought before Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt, charged with manslaughter. It is alleged that on October 28, 2020, he caused the death of Jarvis Burrows. According to police reports, Burrows was shot shortly after 9 p.m. on Wednesday by an off-duty police officer. Police said Burrows was later transported to the Exuma Medical Facility, where an air ambulance was called to transport him to New Providence. While at the Exuma International Airport awaiting transport, he died around 11 p.m. Moments after the shooting, a video surfaced of Burrows on the ground bleeding. The video, which has been widely shared, shows a man with a gun taking a package of suspected marijuana from Burrows. Police have not given details to say what led to the shooting. Anderson was not required to enter a plea in this matter, and his attorney, K. Melvin Monroe, said he will be applying for bail for his client. Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt remanded Anderson to the Central Police Station. However, if that bail application is not approved, he will be heading to the Bahamas Department of Corrections. He'll return to court for a voluntary bill of indictment on January 18, 2021. Reporting for Our News, I'm Gillian Gray.
Thanks, Gillian. Well, Our News understands that Anderson was in fact granted bail. Meanwhile, government has scrapped its plan to change border restrictions on November 1st that would have allowed returning residents and visitors to avoid having to quarantine. According to the latest emergency orders, visitors and residents arriving in the Bahamas will still be required to quarantine for 14 days and test negative for COVID-19 at the end of that period. It's a sharp change from government's previous plan to starting November 1st, allow persons entering the country to arrive with a negative RT-PCR test, followed by taking an antigen test upon arrival and another rapid test 96 hours later. The change in plans has come to the dismay of the Living with COVID Coalition, who government previously announced it had partnered with in order to secure 3 million rapid antigen tests to assist with its border testing initiative. A letter from the group's chairman, Robert Myers, to Tourism Minister Dionisio de Aguilar reads, in part, "Beyond the disrespect this 11th hour revision presents to the many volunteers and thousands of hours that have been contributed to this not-for-profit effort, the government of the Bahamas' current plan to eliminate the point of entry testing seems significantly less clear, secure and actionable, thus increasing the risk of further exposure to the citizens, communities and businesses of the Bahamas. It does not seem prudent that the socioeconomic health of the nation and physical health of its citizens should be dependent on a voluntary questionnaire with no ramifications to those that may not choose to be entirely honest when completing it." The letter continues, "It is our position that for the safety, health and security of the country that we must trust but verify as the case with many other countries around the world, and that anything less is irresponsible and negligent." Meanwhile, the Living with COVID Coalition is defending the effectiveness of rapid antigen tests. The group previously announced that it had teamed up with the Ministry of Tourism to secure 3 million antigen tests to be used as the country relaxes restrictions at the border. While that partnership is seemingly in question, with government announcing that visitors will still have to quarantine, Coalition member Roy Ann Dean says the tests are up to standard.
But one of the best practices that the WHO advises is to increase testing capacity. The rapid antigen test is a critical part of increasing that testing capacity because it's rapid. It provides results in approximately 30 minutes.
On Tuesday, health officials said they do not recommend rapid antigen tests for screening asymptomatic individuals. It called into question the effectiveness of previous plans to use follow-up rapid antigen testing in place of having individuals quarantine when they enter the country. Dean defended the use of those tests, saying they're widely accepted.
First of all, we wouldn't be the first place in the world to use the rapid antigen test, right? It's WHO approved, and you can see, if you check the news, you will see that more and more countries are using this test. And this test is also, we've done a lot of consultation to arrive at this test. So we spoke with medical practitioners in the Bahamas, again, following WHO guidelines and Ministry of Health guidelines for the choice of the test.
Restrictions at the border were expected to change on November 1st. The plan was for individuals to have a negative RT-PCR test before arrival and 2 negative antigen tests, one upon arrival and another 96 hours later. Dean says the testing is key to safely opening the economy.
This is a once in 100-year pandemic, and our economy is at a breaking point. So we have to find ways to use the available technology and information that we have to bring the economy back from the brink.
An asymptomatic visitor testing positive for COVID-19 while in the Bahamas will receive a per diem, according to Tourism Director General Joy Jibrilu. The move is not sitting well with residents who said they should just be sent back home. Meantime, the tourism minister is defending the Director General's statement, asserting that the government will not be paying a dime. Berthany McDermott has that.
Following that announcement by that top tourism official, some residents we spoke to outright disagreed with the move. They say those visitors should be sent back home.
No, should turn them back.
Send them back home?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
We don't need that here. We don't need that here in our country.
Well, just send them back home, send them back to their country, and that's it.
They should be quarantined and be dealt with and sent back.
Speaking at the Counselor Limited's Exuma Business Outlook on Thursday, Tourism Director General Joy Jibrilu said if someone is found to be positive for COVID-19 but asymptomatic, they will be allowed to vacation in place and paid a per diem. If the traveler is found to be asymptomatic but has comorbidities, or if they present with symptoms, a medevac flight will then return them home. Tourism Minister Dionisio Diagler, however, explains that the cost of the per diem will be included in the travel health visa and stressed that it will be at no cost to the Bahamian taxpayer.
Shortly after the opening, I don't think it's going to happen on the 1st of November, but shortly thereafter, we have contracted with Atlantic Medical to provide all foreign visitors coming into the country with health insurance to deal with any issues that might arise with them contacting or contacting coronavirus when they're in the destination.
Of the total cost of the travel visa, Diagler said between $25 to $30 is for the insurance. His comments come as government has again changed its plans for visitors and residents entering the country. Along with a negative COVID-19 RT-PCR test, they will now have to quarantine for 14 days upon arrival. As the country is just days away from the second reopening of the tourism sector, some residents feel the country will be prepared once effective protocols to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 are in place.
We're ready to open if the folk who are coming COVID negative.
Well, that depends on figures, the amount of COVID tests that we administer to the Bahamian people, and also depend on the tourists being tested to make sure that we are safe.
The tourism minister, however, gave the assurance that the country is prepared. However, he admits it hasn't been an easy road.
We are going to be ready to open our borders on the 1st of November to welcome foreign visitors into our country. It's been a fairly bumpy ride, and it's been a very fluid situation. It's involved significant negotiations between the Ministry of Tourism and the Ministry of Health in terms of ensuring the correct protocols are in place.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
The fluctuation of local COVID-19 restrictions has delayed the reopening of Sandals Royal Bahamian. That's according to the hotel chain's deputy chairman, Adam Stewart, who also revealed the hotel's reopening date of February 1st could change based on demand. Jasmine Brown tells us more.
The top Sandals Resort International executive made the comments while he was a guest at the Counselor Limited's Exuma Business Outlook on Thursday afternoon.
So right now we're looking based on the demand that we're seeing, and I think this is the clearer that we are with the marketplace overall, as I mentioned earlier, one of the most complicated things that has happened for every government, not just the government of the Bahamas, has been, what is the pathway? What do people need to do? What has evolved? Of course, there have been a couple of lockdowns in the Bahamas due to spikes and decisions that needed to be made. With each one of those lockdowns, the fact is that every action has an equal reaction. It's created confusion in the marketplace. And other countries like the Dominican Republic and Mexico have decided just to open their borders, and they've gotten ahead.
Over the last 7 months, numerous lockdowns, curfews, and other restrictive measures have been imposed to fight COVID-19 in the Bahamas. More stringent measures were recently implemented on New Providence and Abaco, which were experiencing a spike in cases ahead of the November 1st ramping up of the tourism industry. As it relates to the opening date, Stewart says it's not all set in stone.
The date that we have now is February 1st, but I would say to you, don't hold on to it because it moves week to week as demand starts to build. We are seeing increased demand in the last couple of weeks. The US election is hindering and getting in the way of tourism at large. Right. It's a very normal thing, but this year is even a bit more chaotic than traditional years. I think we're going to see, I'm very hopeful that we're going to see an accelerated demand after next week's election. And the Bahamas is the shortest distance to go of any Caribbean destination, and I think that's going to favor well for us.
Still, he noted that there are some people experiencing travel anxiety during the pandemic.
There are people out there that are fearful of travel. They're becoming less and less, but they still exist. And then there are those that want to get on with life. They really want to put on their masks, observe protocols, and get going. And all of that builds up to a place where the reason we have been able to open other hotels first is not for a lack of love of our beautiful relationship with the country, the Bahamas. It was just clearer earlier.
Stewart also empathized with resort owners' hesitation to announce opening dates or to be open too soon, explaining that the Bahamas is a high-cost destination where you have to be sure that you will at least break even. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
It's time now for your first check on weather with meteorologist Greg Thompson. Good night, Greg.
Thanks, Jared. I'm meteorologist Greg Thompson with your first look at weather, brought to you tonight by Lucerna. Current conditions outside our studios, very nice evening setting up. Temperatures in the low 80s, 83 degrees is our current temperature with just a few clouds on the outside. Winds out of the southeast at 5 knots, feels like temperature around 83 degrees Fahrenheit. Satellite-wise, high pressure ridge continues to dominate our weather with just very nice weather across the area. Just some patchy clouds moving across the islands. We expect the frontal boundary to get near sometime by the weekend. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come on Our News, the DPM says VAT on Facebook ads was inevitable. And the Christian Council signs an MOU with agriculture. Find out why when we come back.
As students and educators transition to e-learning, we know that there are families across the nation feeling left behind. High-speed internet is no longer a luxury, it's a necessity for all. A community response is needed to bridge the gap. The Cable Bahamas Group of Companies and the Rotary Clubs of the Bahamas are leading the way. Support the Rotary fundraising campaign. Give the gift of connectivity.
Beginning on November 1st, Facebook ads in the Bahamas will be subject to value-added tax at the applicable local tax rate, a move the finance minister is calling leveling the playing field. Giorgio Bain reports.
Following an announcement made on Facebook's business page that as of November 1st, businesses will be subject to paying value-added tax, many red flags were raised by those in the business community. However, according to the Deputy Prime Minister, it's not meant to be a burden on business owners. Beginning on November 1st, 2020, Facebook ads in the Bahamas will be subject to value-added tax at the applicable local tax rate. This according to a notice posted on Facebook's Facebook for Business page. The notice raising red flags for Facebook users. However, Finance Minister Peter Turnquest confirming that an amendment in the Value Added Tax Act in 2018 that brought foreign providers into the regime started with vacation rentals such as Airbnb allows for the taxation.
Cable Bahamas is providing digital advertising to Bahamians in the Bahamas, for which they charge their customers value-added tax. Before now, Facebook doing the exact same thing, however, doing it from a foreign location, but delivering the service in the Bahamas for consumption by Bahamians, did not have to pay value-added tax. They obviously had an advantage.
Turnquest said the taxes are not meant to be a burden on businesses who use Facebook to advertise, and admitted that those small businesses will not even notice the change. He called it an effort to level the playing field between local and international service providers.
It's not a new tax. It is not intended to be some added burden. Most people will not even know it. It is only those persons who use the internet, the Facebooks, and other social medias to conduct their primary business that may see some activity. But again, as with local value-added tax charges, it's not the business that pays the tax, it's the actual consumer, because the business will build it on their invoice to the consumer, who then pays.
Turnquest urged residents to recognize that this is not an isolated move by the Bahamas. However, the finance minister admitted that the new revenue is welcomed.
This represents new revenue for us only to the extent that the law is now being applied and the service providers are complying. So it's not a new tax, it's not a new law, it's just the effective implementation of the law. And it levels the playing field between domestic providers and foreign providers.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Georgie Obey.
The Bahamas Christian Council signed a memorandum of understanding with the Ministry of Agriculture today to launch the Church Commercial Farming Group. The Commercial Farming Group is the economic arm of the Bahamas Christian Council. Group Chairman Dr. Patrick Paul said the goal is to accelerate efforts to accomplish food security and self-sufficiency while contributing to the restoration, increase and expansion of the agriculture and fisheries sectors.
And having met with us as heads of churches, we have agreed that the church is one of the best entities in the country to be able to basically work together and then bring our members together so that we can ensure a greater level of food security in the Bahamas.
Dr. Paul added that the church intends to get 20,000 of its members involved in backyard farming. BAIC Chairman Gregory Cawley said the COVID-19 pandemic has increased the importance of Bahamians growing their own food. As a result, he says expansion of the agriculture sector is vital.
Just imagine if we were not able to import the food stuff that we require, the kind of condition our people, our health, and the amount of starvation that will come about as a result. So it's important that we focus on expanding the agricultural sector to ensure that we grow the items that we need.
When Our News comes back from the break, PAHO talks contact tracing in the Bahamas.
This is a huge deal. NFL Sunday Ticket is back, only with Rev Trio. All-day football, all-day Sunday. Enjoy all the benefits of Trio with a huge extra. Never miss a game with NFL Sunday Ticket, included in your Rev Trio bundle. All you have to do is opt in. TV, phone, and internet starting at just $99. Call 601-8992 to sign up now. Visit www.rev.bs/promotions for details.
Every day, these men and women put their lives on the line in the most advanced tactical combat units available. They work in areas of conflict and struggle, providing law enforcement and life-saving exercises. They are on the front lines.
Welcome back. Officials of the Pan American Health Organization held a meeting with members of the Ministry of Health's surveillance team to explore contact tracing in the Bahamas. Dr. Blair Woodside pointed to issues the surveillance unit has been facing.
Depending on the information that the case gives us, it really all depends, and it's very case by case. In some instances where people have gone to the food store or the bank, we really haven't been able to say, you need to clean your institution, or you need to maybe test your employers. We haven't been doing that. But we do try as best as possible to notify the different institutions or different places, restaurants that person has been to.
Nurse Ernestine Flowers, who was also attached to the ministry surveillance unit, said the stigma attached to the virus has also hindered contact tracing efforts.
Certainly, persons were fearful, and so they refused to continue to communicate with us when we make our calls. During our first call, we found that they spoke to us, they gave us the information that we needed. But when we tried to make subsequent calls, we realized that the call was either rejected or there was an excuse, can you call me back? Or a family member who should not actually have been in the same environment or the same room with the person would say that she's asleep, or they'd find an excuse for the person.
The Ministry of Education is strengthening support mechanisms in Exuma to facilitate online learning at public schools in that island. That's according to Education Director Marcellus Taylor.
I'm sure that people in Exuma will have their opinion on whether or not what is provided is adequate. I would say that we are in the process of strengthening up the infrastructure that is there in Exuma to support the virtual learning activities.
The Education Director made the comments while he was a guest at the Counselors Limited's Exuma Business Outlook on Thursday afternoon. It's no secret that the Ministry of Education's virtual learning platform has been hit with technical issues. In the first day of virtual learning classes earlier this month, the Ministry of Education's main portal system was experiencing major challenges, preventing students from logging on to their classes. Despite the challenges, Taylor says he's pleased with the progress that has been made since the official start of the 2020-2021 academic year. Thursday night football highlights are on the way when we come back.
As students and educators transition to e-learning, we know that there are families across the nation feeling left behind. High-speed internet is no longer a luxury, it's a necessity for all. A community response is needed to bridge the gap. The Cable Bahamas Group of Companies and the Rotary Clubs of the Bahamas are leading the way. Support the Rotary fundraising campaign, Give the Gift of Connectivity.
The Atlanta Falcons and the Carolina Panthers in a pre-Halloween showdown to kick off Week 8. That and a preview of your weekend football action are straight ahead with Marcellus Hall.
Well, of course, the NFL season is under full swing, and for those of you that haven't signed up already for your NFL Sunday ticket, still time to do so. If you have the NFL Trio package, just opt in and you're all good to go. If not, just call one of our Rev agents and they'll get you all hooked up. Speaking of football, last night, Atlanta Falcons, Carolina Panthers going head-to-head just before Halloween. Who would get the trick and who would get the treat? Let's find out. Atlanta Falcons, Carolina Panthers meeting up in Thursday night action as Week 8 of the NFL season kicked off. Both teams out of the NFC South. Falcons, Matt Ryan throwing for 281 yards and a touchdown. It would add 4 field goals, holding off the Panthers 25-17. Falcons with a win, improved to 2-6 on the year. They held off a late fourth quarter charge by the Panthers with a key interception to seal the victory. The loss now drops Carolina to 3-5. Season action will continue on Sunday with more Week 8 action. We'll take a look at your upcoming schedule. So be sure and check out all the action this coming weekend. We'll give you all the details from this weekend's activities coming up for you on Monday. Reporting for Our News, I'm Marcellus Hall.
Thanks, Marcellus. Well, it's time now for your extended weather forecast with Greg Thompson. Take it away, Greg.
Thanks again, Jared. In your second look at weather tonight, brought to you by Grand Bahama Power Company. On our satellite, we have that frontal boundary hanging out across the northwest Bahamas, generating some isolated showers down in that area. We also have a very active tropical wave to the south of us that the National Hurricane Center is giving a 70% chance for formation. Will continue to move across the western Caribbean. Your boating forecast for the northwest Bahamas tonight through tomorrow. Your winds will be out of the northwest to north at 10 to 15 knots, 2 to 4 foot seas expected, becoming more northeasterly tomorrow, while in the central and southeast Bahamas, a southeast to southerly flow at 10 to 15 knots, seas running 2 to 4 feet over the ocean. High tide will occur at 8 p.m. tonight. Here's a look now at your national forecast. A look now at your extended forecast through Wednesday. That's a look at our weather. Have a safe night, everyone, and make it a great weekend.
Thank you for joining us for Our News Tonight. To catch Our News on the go, download the RevGo Play app. On behalf of the entire news team, I'm Jared Higgs. Have a beautiful evening in Bahamas, but stay with us. Shakespeare in Paradise, Othello is up next.